Assalamualaikum everyone, and today's topic is the electrical safety in household electricity and the dangers of electricity. These two topics are the last topics of your 14th chapter. After this, we will just start our chapter number 15. So, to ensure electrical safety in our house circuits, we have to install at least two of these components, okay, either fuses or circuit breakers plus the earthing, of course. So what are fuses? Fuses actually consist of thin, low melting temperature wire which, when excessive current passes through them, they melt out, thus stopping the flow of current. Okay, so usually आप लोगों ने घर में भी देखा होगा आपने that fuse actually simply consists of a thin wire which is actually attached to these fixed bolts so that they could just tighten up the wire. And this type of wire is actually has really low melting point. Okay, so that whenever excessive amount of current will pass through it, it will melt down, because whenever excessive amount of current, or the more the current will pass through the wire, the more will be the heat generated. Okay, ये आपने चार्ल्स लॉ में पढ़ा है. So जितना ज़्यादा करंट पास होगा उतनी ज़्यादा हीट जनरेट होगी, एंड दस एक्सेसिव हीट it would just melt out this wire. Okay, thus breaking the overall circuit of that ring main circuit or wherever that fuse is connected to. The second point is the circuit breakers. Actually, these consist of metal contacts which separates from the circuit when excessive current passes through it, thus stopping the flow of current. Okay, so basically सर्किट ब्रेकर्स कंसिस्ट ऑफ मेटल कॉन्टैक्ट्स. ओके, जैसे यहाँ पर वायर यूज़ करते हैं, यहाँ पर मेटल की सपोज प्लेट्स यूज़ कर सकते हैं, मेटालिक वायर्स यूज़ कर सकते हैं, जो कि एक्सेसिव करंट पास होने पर सर्किट से सेपरेट हो जाएंगी. जैसे ही ये मेटल कॉन्टैक्ट सर्किट से सेपरेट होंगे तो जो आपका सर्किट है वो ब्रेकअप हो जाएगा, एंड नो करंट विल बी जस्ट पास थ्रू दैट सर्किट. सर्किट ब्रेकर्स यूजुअली ज़्यादा इफ़ेक्टिव होते हैं बिकॉज फ्यूज़ के केस में इफ़ अ फ्यूज़ जस्ट melts out, then you have to actually install another wire into it. Okay, but in a circuit breaker you don't have to install another wire or another metal contact. You just have to switch that button on again. Okay, so it will just start working again. So you have to install either the two of these or at least one of these components, these two components, in the housing circuits. Second one is the earthing. Actually, this is the third wire in every ring main circuit. I've already told you about the ring main circuit, and आपने देखा होगा यूजुअली सॉकेट्स इस तरह के होते हैं. सो ये जो ऊपर वाला सॉकेट है, दिस इज फॉर द अर्थ वायर. So it is either connected to the metal wire pipes or directly to the ground, so that whenever excessive current passes through the socket, it is directly sent to the ground, thus preventing electric shock. The three-pin plug has its own fuse in it. Okay, so that whenever there is excessive current, the fuse will blow out and all the excessive current will go through the ground. So basically, this component consists of the earthing wire. The earthing wire is connected to either your water pipes, your metal water pipes, or either directly to the ground. Okay, so that जब भी आपका excessive current यहाँ पर इस socket में आएगा, then it will just travel through the earth wire into the ground. Okay, another thing is that mostly जो आपके 3-pin plugs होते हैं उनमें already अपना fuse भी installed होता है, so that जब भी excessive current आएगा, then that fuse will just melt out, thus breaking the circuit, and the excessive current would just pass through the ground. Okay, the second point is the dangers of electricity. This is a separate topic. Now there are basically two main dangers that a house faces whenever some kind of electric circuit is being installed in it. The first one is the electric shock. When current flows through a body to the earth, the person feels an electric shock. Okay, जब भी एक body में से current pass होगा through the from the circuit through the body to the ground, the person would face an electric shock. If the body is dry, then its resistance will be high. Remember that if body is dry, then its resistance will be high. Of course, because अगर body आपकी wet होगी, then as water is kind of conductor, water जब भी body पर होगा या body wet होगी, you can say, then more current will pass through it. If there is no water on the body or no moisture on the body and the body is not damp at all, then low current would pass through it because its resistance would be high. So, and in the case of a wet body, the resistance will be lower and the current passing through it will be higher. Okay, I've just wrote down it in the form of a table. Okay, where I've taken the case of a dry body and a wet body. Okay, take a case of a person who is really dry, it's not wet at all, and a person who has just taken bath. Okay, so the resistance of the person's body, of the dry body, would be about, at an average rate, 10,000 ohms, right? Because dry body has a higher resistance, and the resistance of the wet body is actually around 1,000 ohms. Okay, because a wet body offers so very low resistance to the flow of current. The voltage provided would be the same. Always remember that it's the current flowing through a body that causes electric shock, not the change in voltage, right? So the voltage stays 240 volts for both the cases. Now we have to find the current flowing through that body. We have to use the Ohm's law. It says that I equals to V by R. V is 240, R is 10,000. So 240 divided by 10,000 give us 24 milliamperes. Okay. Similarly, in case of wet body, when you have to find the current flowing through that body, we are going to again use the Ohm's law, which says that I equals to V by R. So we have to put the value of V and R, which is 1000. So 240 divided by 1000 give us 240 milliampere, right? So in both the cases, you can compare this value and this value. This value is 10 times higher than this one. Okay, so hence the shock felt by a wet body would be 10 times higher than that of the dry body. So it's that much effective. Now coming to the precautions, what kind of precautions do we need to adopt in order to prevent ourselves and our homes from getting shocks? So the first one is that don't touch or repair any kind of electric appliance or electric component without switching off the circuit or without breaking the circuit, right? The best option is that you have to just turn off the main circuit, okay, or main switchboard. The second point is that use properly insulated plugs. Do not use such kind of plugs which have broken wires or broken plugins and all that. You have to use a kind of plug which is totally insulated from the point where the wire is being connected to the circuit to provide 100% safety. The third point is that never let any appliance or component be in contact with water. Of course, water is a is a conductor. If any kind of appliance or component is wet, the current can pass through that water and can pass through the person which touches that wet appliance or component. Okay, so it's really very important point. The fourth point is avoid long and unnecessary mesh of cables in a room. Okay, so you have to avoid any kind of long wires which are just scattered around in a room, because if any of that wire um, would be damaged, okay, then it can actually cause an electric shock, because if any wire is damaged, its insulation is damaged, then the person that just touches that wire or just walks on that wire will face an electric shock, right? So these are four precautions that need to be followed up to in order to prevent ourselves from getting electric shocks. The last point is the fire risk. Actually, when the wires and components get hot when current passes through it. Okay, we have already studied in our Joule's law. It says that the more the current would pass through it, the more would be the resistance, and hence more would be the heat produced in that component. Okay, so wire or components get hot when any kind of current passes through them. Hence, excessive current will cause fire in that circuit. Okay, because excessive current will melt those wire and can cause damage to the insulation, and that insulation, when it gets really hot, can catch up fire. Okay, so and hence we need some precautions to be carried out in order to stay safe. The first precaution to avoid fire risk is the use of plugs that have fuses. If there is no fuse in a plug, the wire and the insulation can catch fire. If there is a fuse, it will just melt out, thus preventing the excessive amount of heat released from that wire. The second point is that avoid attaching too many appliances to a single socket or ring main circuit. This kind is kind of important. If you would just attach every single appliance of your house to one single ring main circuit or even one single socket, the current flowing through that socket would get so much higher that it is gonna melt out the electric components. Okay, or we can say that it will cause you can fire in the insulation areas. Therefore, we have to really avoid attaching too many appliances in a ring main circuit, especially. The third point is the use of thick wires for heavier appliances, because thick wires offer less resistances. I have told it a bit earlier that if you take a wire like this one and you take another wire like this one, both have the same length, but this wire has a larger surface area. Okay, so this would offer less resistance to the flow of charges as this wire. It will offer more resistance than this one. Thus, by using thick wires for heavier appliances, we can actually reduce the risk of fire. Okay, because these thick wires get don't really get that much hot, because they offer really less resistance to the flow of current. The fourth point is that avoid using components that have damaged insulation. Okay, if you're using any kind of cable, any kind of switch, any kind of socket that has been broken, then current would be able to pass through it even in a little damp conditions or damp weathers. Okay, so अगर आपके एयर में थोड़ी सी भी moisture होगी, then that kind of moisture can cause the flow of current through that socket if it's not properly insulated. Okay, so please make sure to insulate every kind of socket, every kind of electrical component, to ensure they won't catch any fire, and the fire risk can be reduced in your house circuits. Okay, so this was all for today, and it is where our chapter ends. नेक्स्ट टाइम हम लोग अपना फर्स्ट चैप्टर स्टार्ट अपना नेक्स्ट चैप्टर स्टार्ट करेंगे, दैट इज चैप्टर नंबर 15, electromagnetism. Okay, so thank you so much everyone. Allah Hafiz.